For a male to use Anavar, if you're buying it, which is pretty expensive Anavar, you're wasting your money. Give it to your girlfriend. Created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. Whatever's on your mind, diet, training, supplementation, bodybuilding, non-bodybuilding, it is all on the table. And again, full disclosure, this episode, like last week's, was pre-recorded 2 days prior to Dave's surgery. So you're about to see Dave Palumbo on camera. No, he did not miraculously bounce back from the surgery room, and here he is 4 days later, recording whatever. But we're gonna go under the assumption that all went well. Dave, how did everything go last week?
I feel great. You can't see me because I'm in heaven right now, but no, I wanted to make sure you guys had something to watch during the week, that I'm in the hospital. Now, theoretically, I'm probably, assuming that I made it, I'm pretty functional, probably answering emails and stuff like that. And I probably could have recorded the episode, but I didn't want to put the pressure on myself. And I was thinking about this. I don't think I've ever taken a whole week off in the history of me doing this. So in the history of me doing either muscular development or RxMuscle, after that, for the last, whatever it is, 15 years, I've never taken off a week and done nothing. So, and you know what? Maybe I might have recorded Heavy Muscle Radio, depending on how I felt. I don't know, how that went. But so,
well, I was just gonna say, because assuming that we do go live, or we did go live rather, Sunday night, Heavy Muscle Radio, and let's just say you didn't get your cameo drop in from the hospital bed. This would have been your first missed episode of Heavy Muscle Radio ever, correct?
Yeah. So I probably will do it anyway, because I don't want to miss. Even if I'm in ICU, I'm gonna sneak the phone a little bit, and I'm gonna say, all right, get me on for 5 minutes until they come in and tell me to turn the phone, because I don't think in ICU you'll have to have a phone or anything like that. But I figure by Wednesday, from my surgery is Wednesday, I figure by Sunday I should be in a normal room by then. I think, but who knows?
On that note, let's get to the questions. The first question on the show, of course, from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. First question, your first you as Big Dave. Do you get a lot of that? Do people call you just, hey, Big Dave, coach, hey, yo, chief boss? So the question is, I'm doing your low carb diet. Question is, I weigh 195 pounds, 11% body fat. Your diet has 6 meals. Should I reduce portion size in each meal, or should I drop 2 meals and eat 4 times? I've done keto in the past to get ripped, but I like your protein guidelines so I don't lose mass.
This sounds so familiar, this question, like I answered it already. Sid and I had recorded. We weren't recording, actually, so we had to go back and do it again. But to answer the question a little more succinctly maybe than I did last time, your body functions better when it eats small, frequent meals throughout the day. The reason is that your body can't store protein, and your body needs protein all the time for enzymes, hormones, hair, nails, skin, the internal lining of your intestinal tract, and then if you work out, to repair muscles, And this is a constant need it has for it. And so there is no storage facility for protein in the body. So you have to get it through your diet. So if you're working out hard, you definitely don't want to do 3 meals a day, because you're going to have long stretches, like 6 to 8 hours possibly, where you're not eating anything. And that's not good. You might think, oh, I'll burn more fat. Well, you won't, because your body's going to have a need for protein, and it's going it's going to cannibalize muscle tissue doing that. So you got to eat at least 5 times a day, 6 times a day for a lot of males, usually 5 times for women, because women can go a little bit longer between meals. And the actual act of eating will actually increase your metabolic rate. So when you go long stretches, more than 8 hours without eating, your metabolism shuts down to conserve energy. So if you're frequently eating every 2 to 3 hours, your metabolism will always be cranking, and you'll notice you're sweating and hot all the time. And that's something that I used to be dripping with sweat all the time because I was eating so much food back in the day. And so that's a good thing. You want your metabolism racing, especially when you're trying to lose body fat. So I recommend, even if you have to lower the protein per meal, eating more frequent meals throughout the day. I think it's going to be much better. And that came from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Guys, if you want to subscribe to that, it's $29 a month. You get me as your personal trainer in your back pocket. All my articles I've ever written, all the videos I've ever done in one place. We put up a workout every single week, and I answer everyone's questions in an open forum, question and answer for everyone to see. And then also once a week, I do a Q&A video, kind of like Ask Dave, only just for the app members. So you get a lot of little perks of being a member. And like I said, it's Dave Palumbo in your back pocket, and that's a great value. So
let's go to our Instagram questions. Again, if you're not already following us there, the handle is official_RxMuscle. If you're watching us for the first time here on YouTube, we ask that you subscribe below, hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss any of our shows, upcoming segments, updates, whatever it is that we have on this channel. If you like what you're watching, hit the like button, comment below. And as always, we appreciate all of your support. Let's go to a good friend of the show, Rachel Bronwyn. Thoughts on liquid albuterol dosage split?
I think you said albuterol, right?
Albuterol, yeah.
Yeah. Albuterol is what we call a beta-2 agonist asthma medication. It stimulates the beta-2 receptors on the blood vessel walls, which will lower blood pressure, and on the bronchial tubes of your lungs, and that will dilate those. So for asthmatics who have trouble breathing, or the bronchial tube spasming, it opens them up. And most asthmatics take either a pill or they take an inhaler. Sometimes they have a liquid, like she's talking about. Problem with albuterol is it doesn't burn any fat. It sounds like clenbuterol, and it's in a similar class, but for some reason, clenbuterol does something beyond that, and we don't really know why. Clenbuterol is an exclusively beta-2 agonist, whereas albuterol has direct effects on the heart because it stimulates the beta-1 receptors on the heart. In addition, clenbuterol doesn't do that. If your heart beats fast on clenbuterol, it's because you've taken too much at one dose and you've lowered your blood pressure too much, and then the heart had to beat faster. So there's no direct beta-1 receptor, stimulation from clenbuterol. There is theoretically a beta-3 receptor stimulation, and they theoretically think that fat cells have beta-3 receptors on them and that clenbuterol might activate those, and that might be one of the mechanisms by which it burns fat. Another mechanism we talked about last week was increasing glucagon production, which is a mobilizing hormone. It takes stuff out of the cells and gets them out of there. And obviously, if you deplete glycogen from the cells faster using glucagon, theoretically, your body would dip into stored body fat a little faster. So that could be a mechanism too. No one really knows how clenbuterol burns fat, but it works really well. So if you're thinking about using albuterol because it's more available and you can get it more easily, that's great, but it doesn't burn fat. So
let's go to Mick Morkel. Recently, you spoke about saw palmetto helping with acne via reducing DHT hormones. Does saw palmetto also reduce DHT, or does it have a suppression effect on your actual free testosterone also?
No, saw palmetto just blocks that enzyme that converts testosterone into DHT, or dihydrotestosterone. So it has a similar effect to like finasteride, but it doesn't have such an all-encompassing effect. It's kind of like a blunting effect as opposed to an annihilation effect. Like finasteride flatlines your DHT production. And for people who are super high DHT converters like me, I need that, because otherwise my prostate I never had a prostate problem because I've been on finasteride for so long, but I crank DHT out. Even on no HRT, on no hormones, my DHT is still high if I don't take finasteride. So I have a problem with DHT production. I produce too much of it. So I need something strong. But for most people, they don't convert that much to DHT. So a product like Testalize, which is the product that I produce, that uses a very high potency saw palmetto seem to work really well. I give it to teenage girls who have acne, and because DHT is what causes acne, hair loss, and prostate enlargement. And these girls, their acne goes away. Same thing with boys. I mean, so some teenage girls produce a lot of testosterone, and they don't produce it. Obviously, they don't have testicles, but they have adrenal glands that crank out DHEA. And some women have very high DHEA levels. And if they do, some of that can convert to testosterone, and some of that will convert to DHT. And you don't want that, obviously. So if people's hair are thinning, I know Chris Aceto loves it. He swears that when he takes Testlice, his hair is way thicker. So I don't know if that's true or not, but he says it is. And he has a good head of hair. So I have to believe that, he's sensitive to DHT as well. So I guess to answer your question, depending on what saw palmetto extract you use, and it is very dependent. There are a lot of different grades of it. You want to use a very high potency version. You want to have a good quality, a good brand. Whether you use My Testalize or another brand, I don't care. It doesn't matter. But make sure you're using a good quality saw palmetto.
Good question here from Lomna Sasteva. Obviously, you do get a lot of questions regarding, blood work, blood tests, what types of things to look for in a blood test, what kind of questions to ask a doctor. Well, this one's specific to preparing for a blood test. What all should I do? Should I not do? I mean, he specifically mentions not working out, be fasted. I guess what would be your guideline leading up to a blood test to ensure maximal results, or at least a more transparent result?
It's people prepare for blood work, and you really shouldn't when you think about it, unless you had high levels, on a blood work, and you want to see if you can bring them down. Because if you change what you're doing on a daily basis just for the blood work, you're really not getting an accurate picture of what's going on in your body, right? I mean, if you reduce protein and you don't work out for 2 weeks before your, blood work, and, you take all kinds of cleanses and stuff like that, and then you go get blood work and your kidney function comes back, borderline, but normal borderline. Maybe that's not an accurate, snapshot of what's going on in your body under normal situations when you're eating high protein, working out, and not taking cleanses. You might be high, right? So I always recommend to people that they don't, if you want to do a detox after your cycle and after your diet and then get blood work, 3 weeks later, that's fine, because you want to make sure everything came back down to normal. But if you're doing blood work like in the middle of like doing a cycle or something like that, because it's, you like to do it every 6 months, don't change anything. Go in doing exactly what you do on a daily basis and see what the blood work is, so that you get a snapshot of what this is the worst it is, And if it looks good, then you're like, all right, you know what? I'm not putting my body under a lot of strain. If you're coming back with high creatinine levels, then, then you might want to address that. If they're not high, or, then you could say, okay, my body's healthy and I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And so that's my recommendation.
Last week we had a question regarding intra-workout drinks, and you recommended, I guess a beverage that consists of amino evolved and sugar-free Gatorade. Well, this question is from Philip Rowe. How important is intra-workout nutrition for, and I mean, he specifies a natural bodybuilder that is on a good diet, not restricting calories? So, I mean, I guess I would ask you, in general, someone who's on point, with their diet, with their nutrition, right, is, intra-workout nutrition.
Look, I always said this, I've been saying this from day one. If you're eating, a good diet and you're eating 6 times a day, or maybe more in the off season, I'm sure you're having some kind of a pre-workout, either meal or shake. Workout takes an hour and 20 minutes. I mean, you're probably using 30, 40 grams of glycogen. You should have a nice amount of amino acids in your bloodstream from the last meal you just ate. There's really no reason to do any, intra-workout. The only thing really that, I noticed intra-workout that I would like to do, especially when I was training really heavy, would be to drink some sort of a, low glucose, carb drink, like a Gatorade or something like that, just to keep my blood sugar up, because a lot of times I was really exerting really hard. Were there times I drank amino acids and drank with the protein drinks that they used to sell from American Bodybuilding? Yeah, I used to do it, just probably out of paranoia. But really, when I would just drink a Gatorade, I would feel just as good. So you don't really need any intra-workout nutrition, because think about it. When your muscles are working really hard, the kidneys shut down. That's why no one has to, very rarely do you have to pee in the middle of a workout, because your kidneys are not doing it. If you pee before you start training, you'll never have to go to the bathroom, during a workout and pee, because the kidneys aren't even working, because the blood supply is diverted to the working muscles. Same thing with the digestive tract. You're not digesting food really when you're working out, because the blood is not in the intestinal tract. So the only thing that you really might absorb, like I said, is some sugar and maybe some amino acids, but your body doesn't really use amino acids in an off-season scenario for energy. So, you can do it if you like it. Some people just like the taste of it. They like to think about it in their head that they're doing some aminos and a little bit of low dilute sugar, like a Gatorade, and they feel good, but you don't have to do it, is what I'm saying. And unfortunately, a lot of people buy amino acids pre-workouts without ever having a multivitamin, multimineral. They don't take an essential fat. They don't take a fiber supplement. They don't use a protein supplement, but they got their pre-workout and they got their amino drink. And believe me, I like when you guys buy amino drinks. Amino Evolve sells very well, and thank you. It works great. You have what I call the luxury item cache, where you can afford to do everything and the good stuff, all the good stuff and the luxury items. That's fine. But if you're on a limited budget, I wouldn't be spending my money on intra-workout nutrition. It's just not worth it. You don't really need it. Does it hurt if you can afford it and do it? No, why not? Especially as long as you're not dieting. If you're not dieting, you're off season, as much as you can jam down your throat is probably going to be helpful. But don't sacrifice the stuff that you do need first because you think it's a more glamorous supplement.
Let's go to Dave Jelinek. Have you ever taken Masteron and Anavar at the same time? If so, did you have any issues from DHT?
Anavar and Masteron are not DHT. They're derived from DHT, but they are not. They have no properties of DHT anymore. In other words, they just use the dihydrotestosterone molecule and then they chemically modify it to make those drugs. So they're DHT derived drugs, but they have no DHT effects, and and as a matter of fact, they don't convert to DHT. So that's why when people try to say, "Oh, Winchell causes hair loss," no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. It does not. It does not. Neither does Anavar. Okay. And neither does Masteron. Okay, so that people confuse that, and you know what? That's because there's like a lot of old wives' tales in throughout bodybuilding of all these things like Winchell dries your joints out. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. It's just that people take Winchell when they're dieting for a show the last 6 to 8 weeks, when their body is at its leanest and the joints are dehydrated because they're eating low carbs, and that's why they think Winchell causes joint problems. And when do people add Winchell? They added it 6 weeks out, right? Or 8 weeks out, which is exactly when your body is the most depleted. So of course you're going to think it's causing that. So there's all these little myths, of which Masteron, Anavar, and what's the other one that's DHT derived? Winchell. Everyone thinks that they cause hair loss or they cause prostate problems. They do not. Matter of fact, I've never taken Anavar because, well, I've taken Anavar, but probably for 2 weeks. It's so weak. For a male to use Anavar, if you're buying it, which is pretty expensive Anavar, you're wasting your money. Give it to your girlfriend, because the stuff just doesn't, it's very weak. Unless you're doing it for a first cycle ever, I would not even waste my money with Anavar for men.
There's our new t-shirt. Give it to your girlfriend. So take a couple more questions. I know you have a busy couple of days of recording over the course of the next, 2 days leading to the procedure. Yeah. This is a good question for obviously someone like yourself, a supplement company owner, especially as, social media has obviously come to the forefront. This whole trend has changed. And the question is about supplement contracts, specifically a new pro. What can they realistically expect to make from a supplement contract?
Well, first of all, there's not a hell of a lot of supplement contracts out there because most people don't want to work. In today's marketplace, the way I see it, aside from maybe the top couple guys in the world who have very big followings on Instagram, there's no return on investment in paying a person, $50,000 for a supplement contract like there was in the past. I mean, when I worked for Metrics, I made $50,000. as an amateur. That was a lot of money, back in the 90s. And, because Scott Connolly liked the freaky guys. He had me, Jimmy Quinn, Pelletier. We were all making good money. And that was because the only way to market was to use people like us in ads, have us at booths, at shows. There was no social media. With social media now, people can sell anything via their social media platform. So unless, if I'm going to hire someone, if I hire Big Ramy, for instance, I got to give him $250,000 because that's his going price. Is he going to bring in $250,000 of business for the year for me, by his one post, every, once a week or every 10 days, whatever he's going to put on his Instagram? Probably not. Probably not. I'm not going to be able to pay that off. So that's why it's very hard for a lot of these top guys to do that. So a lot of these top guys just sell their own stuff. Jay Cutler always did that. They always sold T-shirts and pictures and posters and stuff like that because he knew he didn't want to depend on anyone else to do that. Now there are some people. I have some people who work for us kind of behind the scenes where they're really big social media influencers. They love the products. They recommend them to all their clients. They have a coupon code, and I track that coupon code, and I can see who brings in business for us. And the people who bring in business, I reward. And I think that's a better system because the way I was back in the day, I like to prove myself. I always worked extra hard to show the company that I work for that I was actually bringing value to them. And there's not a lot of people like that out there, but the people who are out there doing that are making money. So to answer the question, what is a supplement company paying? It depends on what the person's worth. Different people are worth different amounts, but I don't think people are just throwing money at bodybuilders anymore because it's hard to justify, making that money back on what you're going to spend.
Well, Dave, that's kind of, I wanted to hone in on that one point. Obviously, you and I work together, on the Species Nutrition, and we do get a lot of questions from athletes. They're maybe on the cusp of getting a pro card, or, they're just, very popular, at the NPC level. And I guess what I've generally told them is that, and again, I want to obviously get your opinion on this as well, is that, look, it's not necessarily your status, right? I mean, there are NPC competitors, there are non-bodybuilding competitors, fitness influencers that have, raucous followings, right? Like engaged followings, motivated followings, right? If they tell them to go eat, like yourself, I mean, let's just be, for what it's worth, you could go out right now and be like, all right, new source of protein, cardboard. People will eat cardboard. So you give recommendation advice. Nobody's sitting there themselves like, well, Dave Palumbo makes a lot of sense, but I don't see that IFBB Pro. And I think that's kind of.
Well, you see, but I found a niche for myself. I said, what? I'm going to be an information provider, then I need to sell the best products out there because otherwise, why would people buy my products if I'm selling inferior products to something else that's out there? So I have one niche. If I have an athlete, though, if I want an athlete to draw people to my products, I need someone who's not like me. I don't want someone who's exactly like me because I don't need another Dave Palumbo. I need someone who's going to reach a different audience. Maybe a bikini competitor who has a big social media influence, and she does videos, cooking videos, and all types of stuff with my products, because that's going to give me a different demographic. And I think that's what most supplement companies do. They sit down and say, all right, who's our audience? Who's our target audience?
Yes.
Hardcore, get Kai Green, right? That's what Redcon uses. Or mutant. Who's the mutant guy?
Sean Clarita, I believe, is a mutant. Yeah.
And, Muscle Tech uses Blessing Awadibu. So who do we want to align ourselves and what audience are we going after? If you want more of a mainstream audience, you might go with a classic or men's physique guy. So it really depends, but there's not, like I said, there's not a lot of money being thrown around like there was in the past. It just isn't. It's just because the margins are too tight. Everyone buys online. There's really not, a huge markup like there used to be because it's too competitive. So you have to have a niche for yourself.
Yes. And
if I'm an athlete looking for a supplement contract, I'm going to go to Dave Palumbo and I'm going to say, here's what I can provide to you. And I'll back it up. I'll do it for the first 2 months and show you that I can bring business to you. And you know what? When people do that to me, I give everyone a chance because you know what? And a lot of times it doesn't work out, but sometimes it does. We have some really good influencers that work for us, and they're not the top level guys, but you know what? They sell product, you know, and they recommend product to their athletes. And that's important to me because that's how the word gets spread, you know, and at least with regard to my supplement line, you know.
Before we go, I just wanted to, so this is from Todd Payette, says not a question. And I think he's speaking for a lot of people that watch this show, that watch this channel, and obviously follow everything that it is that you do on the RxMuscle end, on the Species Nutrition end, you know, really on the, you know, just overall bodybuilding and nutrition end and what you mean to the sport and to those who are partaking. And he goes, just letting you know you're important to many people, including myself. You inspire, educate, and provide good humor for thousands of people. You will be in our thoughts and prayers as you undergo your surgery. You are strong, not just in body, but mind and spirit. Shoulder down, my iron brother, Godspeed. And I don't think it could have been stated any better than from Todd Payette.
Yeah, Todd's a great guy. I've interviewed him, and he's a tough SOB. You know, he doesn't take any crap from anyone, and he doesn't use excuses like, oh, I don't feel good, or I have an injury, or I'm sick. He gets the job done. He's hardcore, and you know what? I appreciate that, Todd. Thank you so much, and everyone else who's really supported me through this whole process, because you know it's you could be the most positive thinking person in the world. Mm. You could be you know, a person who gives advice to everyone out there, which is kind of like what I am. But at the same time, you know, when your livelihood is vulnerable, in other words, or you feel vulnerable because you have to have a procedure that's potentially life-threatening, you know, it's good when people are behind you and they're giving you their prayers and they're giving you their support and they're saying positive and reinforcing things, because it gives you that extra little push to have some confidence that you're going to get through this whole thing. So I thank everyone out there, and you know, those prayers and that positive energy definitely helps propel me through this whole process.